Vanya, you're on our Metaverse Momentum Index.
I know, I think I'm the only thing that keeps you away from lunch and the break, so I'll have to set this up. Or what did the other presenters do? Were they here at the podium or were they there at the table? I wasn't, and you take a good breath off the walk.
While Vanya's getting, you know what? You could have another question for me, Peter? Okay.
This one is good.
There's a mute button on the side.
There we go. But given that I've had more than 10 years of academic experience running things in class, I think I can project my voice very well if this stops working. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vanja Bogicevic. I'm a clinical assistant professor at the Tisch Center of Hospitality, and I'm also one of the members of the Metaverse Collaborative here at STS. So what I'm going to share with you today are the preliminary findings of the Metaverse Momentum Index. So what is this, and how does this Metaverse Momentum Index came to be? So we started the Metaverse Collaborative around this time last year, and among many initiatives that we take, we set out to definitely education to be our priority, as well as trying to get more connected industry in the thought leaders of Metaverse space, but also kind of think about, how can we research Metaverse, and how can we understand the overall level of adoption activity? And it first started with an idea, and we said, yeah, it's a top priority, but then quickly there were so many reports that were popping up. PwC of the report, there was a report by McKinsey, there was a report by Gartner, and many others. So we say, well, maybe it's redundant that us as academics are trying to approach the understanding because we can already get so much data from the consulting companies. But then around the time in December, we kind of gathered with our advisory board and they said, well, no, this should be priority for you as an academic institution. We really need an unbiased view of the level of activity and engagement in the Metaverse. So Liz, myself, and a couple of people started saying, why do we need this in mind? What should this be? And we came to the conclusion that we need to get a good understanding of three groups of stakeholders. So we need an understanding of the companies that are investing in the Metaverse, but also those companies that are possibly embracing the Metaverse for their current processes and practices. So the overall understanding across multiple industries. And our school of professional studies, we operate. We have courses and we have programs in real estate, hospitality, tourism, like liberal arts, sports management, etc., entertainment, media. But we also get an understanding of what is happening with the broader technology side and engineering industry. And we also need to know how do then residents of cities feel about the Metaverse and the opportunities that can come up from the Metaverse in their cities. So there's kind of two kind of step process we developed. The first one, which is what I'm going to present today, is this overall Metaverse Pulse Survey, which basically served to understand the sentiment, the level of activity, opportunities, as well as the lesson learned from the companies that are engaged currently with the Outthinker network of chief strategy officers. Outthinker network is a group that connects the chief strategy officers across multiple industries, and they all come together and they brainstorm about the possibilities that the technologies can bring to their companies, how to embrace these technologies, incorporate in their strategy, how to kind of use like design fiction to envision kind of the future of their industries. And the second part should be this Metaverse Cities Index, which should basically serve as a combination of data that exists at the cities level, as well as data that is collected from subjective perceptions of the residents, to understand again like the level of engagement of residents in the metaverse, as well as the different governmental organizations and different stakeholders at the city level in the metaverse, their collaboration, what are the other opportunities to engage, what are some of the professional governance models, as well as the overall readiness. So how did the first kind of step, the Metaverse Pulse Survey, look like? We've gathered on March 3rd with the Outthinker group, and I have to say special thanks to Karen Griffin for leading the Outthinkers group, as well as Claudio Garcia, who is one of the members of the leadership team, who basically said, well, let us kind of use this, the Outthinker network of people who are ready and willing to embrace new technologies, and they're willing to kind of pioneer and think about the future with us. And let's get their thoughts first. So let's pilot the survey. On March 3rd, we gathered, and we decided to distribute a survey to the network of 135 plus Outthinker chief strategy officers. And in that survey, I'm going to show now again like how we did it. We asked the following set of questions related to the areas. First, about the overall organization information, to understand again like what are the industries and what are their sort of immediate capabilities based on the types of businesses they work with, based on their overall revenue, based on their level of investment. Then their engagement in the metaverse, their readiness to extend their level of engagement in the metaverse, as well as overall power pulse or sentiment or opinions about what is to come, and then the expected impact on their industries. And here's the respondent profile. So looking into kind of the other respondents, and we are still collecting data, so we're processing collecting data. We can see that most of the businesses so far operating in the B2B model, or a combination of a B2B and B2C model, and they are mainly representatives of the software, engineering, IT, but also some from manufacturing and healthcare. We've had representation of also business to governance models as well as nonprofit organizations. So it was a relatively diverse sample so far. We're hoping to diversify it even more. In terms of the annual revenue, like 150 companies were making between like 1 and 10 billion. So we didn't really capture the large conglomerates yet, but I think that's something that is what actually surprised us the most is that at the moment when we were collecting this data, more than half of respondents have already experienced the metaverse, either via their personal devices or like by their computers. And those that haven't, they've actually attended a meeting with us where we were able to expose that to our Metaverse application that we developed here at NYU SDS. So let's check out now some of the results. But before we do that, I would actually like to get opinions from this group. So before I show you what our respondents in the survey thought, could you please take out your phones, either scan this QR code or text Vanja Bogicevic 510. I know that's not a fairly easy name to type. 22334, and let me know what you think about the future of the metaverse. Somebody needs more help. I'm going to throw in a large QR code here. Clearly. Right? Yeah. There it is.
picture is that there is a really huge deal of alignment between what this group thinks as well as our survey group respondents. So I'm going to show you again like what the results have shown. One of the leading kind of finding for us was that our group of respondents thought that the Metaverse will be sort of the next social networking platform, but the kind of second kind of follow-up response was that they also believe that this is going to be the next generation of the internet. So let's see the overall again like opinion. So first kind of major takeaway is that more than 50% of respondents thought that the Metaverse will be a new immersive social platform. But again, like what was for us important to see that again, like also more than half of our respondents already embraced Metaverse in their strategies. Some have found it to be a core element to their strategy. Others have thought that it's an essential element. So it's not an essential element, but it is present to their strategy. And in terms of the understanding overall, there has been sort of this kind of blend of technologies that they associate with the Metaverse. So VR, AR, those have been the dominant, and they receive the highest number of responses, but also AI. AI has seemed to be also essential to the Metaverse in their level of understanding. So we can see already that even though, again, some number of respondents have thought that Metaverse is sort of secondary to AI, those two are actually blending. And depending on our businesses, they're actually tools that are blended to provide these immersive sort of experiences. So we also asked them the questions about their current level of investment and engagement. And so far, more than 50% of respondents have already committed some type of investment to the Metaverse. It wasn't like as much as we kind of thought it would be, but kind of those investments are range somewhere between $0 and $10 million. And in terms of how that revenue was allocated, most of it was allocated toward the labor, so the technology, and then some towards the financials and the investment. So we are seeing some appetite for that investment. And one of the interesting things for us was to see how the organizations have engaged in the Metaverse. Here we don't see the response of those who did not engage, but you see the response only of those companies that have said they have engaged and to what degree they've engaged. So some respondents decided to only commit to their resources towards research and planning activities, whereas others were more action kind of oriented, and they've already built or tested prototypes, used document cases, or they implemented and run activities. And their level of satisfaction was different depending on the types of activities they decided to kind of focus on. So one of the dominant activities where most of the respondents have focused were the development of virtual spaces and events to engage customers. So that kind of focus on immersive technologies, especially in virtual worlds or any kind of AR or VR related technologies, has been the dominant investment. But also we have seen a huge number of those who actually created or sold NFTs, those that utilize NFTs to build loyalty programs, and some number of companies, mostly in the engineering industries or manufacturers, who developed digital twins and simulation of physical space and processes. And then the follow-up thing that I was curious about was if we've had this already these prototypes built, if we had use cases, we had processes that were run and implemented, are any of these actually able to bring in a revenue? And unsurprisingly, revenue streams were not as large, which has been sort of expected given that still most of these applications were in prototype stage. But out of those that were able to kind of bring some small revenue or a greater extent of revenue, we saw that digital twins. So even though the development of digital twins was not as widely spread across the industries that we surveyed, they're actually able to bring the most revenue. I think this is something that ties very nicely into what we heard from Peter, saying that these simulations of the real world that are able to overlay data and use to actually solve real problems possibly have the highest potential for the revenue stream. Another area that was able to bring in some revenue were virtual spaces and events that are able to engage the customers. So at the moment, the industry that we kind of interviewed, they didn't really see any revenue coming in from the virtual or the digital assets, the digital land, the real estate. Not much has been happening in the onboarding and trading processes, but I don't think that revenue streams were expected there. So we also, looking at this level of investment, and there possibly has been some level of support in terms of the revenue stream that the companies could have brought in by investing into Metaverse technologies. We were much interested in learning, what is their overall readiness and how they evaluate the readiness of the industry, because when you don't see this revenue coming in, you probably have to go and ask yourselves on how to evaluate the capabilities that you currently have in the company and what else do you need to prioritize. So there is a huge interest. That's the first and most important thing. 88% of our CSOs said that they are very much personally interested in the metaverse. But one thing that they lack to overcome a lot of the challenges is the regulation. And out of different types of regulation, intellectual property laws were the most important regulation to overcome, followed by contract laws. And here are the top 5 priorities for the organizations where they want to prioritize and focusing on their investment and their development capabilities. The top one was the experience design. The second one was product development, research, but also tied were on the forefront spot the professional development and training, capabilities to develop virtual events and host them or develop content, and again, like lastly, customer service. So when we asked them again, like how they define the metaverse, it was really logical that they've said that they do see this as the latest stage of the development of visual emerging technologies such as VR, AR, XR. And I think that echoes with your definition of saying that this would be kind of a new, again, like internet or like a new networking platform. But where we would like the companies to be is, here. To think about the metaverse as this growth societal shift in how we engage with digital content, how we migrate seamlessly from the digital to the physical world and have these physical experiences, and which results in improved engagement or accessibility, community development, trust, and creation. So when we asked the respondents, well, what do you need to get there? I think it was pretty much like what they said, and like what is missing for your organization to kind of get there. And can you guess what? It's monetization. At this point, nobody's sure how to actually monetize the metaverse and how it can create this revenue stream for their companies. So we also asked them to tell us what their challenges for implementation were at this stage. And the first one, the top one, was that the definition of the metaverse is obscure and needs further articulation. There are multiple definitions of the metaverse. If you're trying to incorporate this into the strategy, you don't really know what to follow, and without knowing what to follow, you can't really set your priorities for the strategy. And then how to measure the ROI in the metaverse, how to actually get meaningful data that will be able to provide insights, as well as, again, like what is the cost of implementation and the maintenance, and how to project that cost in the long run. Some were concerned about the low number of regular users in the metaverse and thinking that this is something that is more suitable for niche market compared to mass market, as well as the idea of having this ever-present data privacy and cyber security challenges for companies. So before I kind of tell you like what they expect in the metaverse in the future, may I just ask you to continue with the poll? I do have another poll question. Now let me actually move up here. Maybe I'm going to go ahead. You already completed. Okay, perfect. So let's kind of check out the responses. Okay, so we have sort of a, well, so far we have a tie, but we'll see what happens.
Sober for a group of people here for a Metaverse Summit.
Yeah, I think probably this was happening like a bit later in the evening, and we had a couple of drinks. Maybe it would have been a bit more optimistic, I guess. But I think that you're fairly, you're probably more modest compared to our respondents, because I do think that our respondents also have. Our group actually was slightly more optimistic about this profound societal transformation. So, like response scale was somewhat different, but I want to tell you like what they already see the potential of the metaverse over the next 3 years. So even though it is a legal nightmare at the moment, and almost like half respondents believe that legally it is very challenging to think about it, like a regulation that should regulate the space, they do believe that there is a potential for this profound societal transformation, and that there is a possibility for revenue stream, but how we're going to figure this out, I think it takes more than just the heads of companies to tell that. We need a synergy of stakeholders from the governments, from residents, from the companies as well. So both consumers in the B2B space and in the B2C space. And one of the other things that I found particularly interesting is that in terms of the hype, people don't see that it's overhyped. They do feel that, yes, I mean, there has been some hype in the beginning, but there are now realistic opportunities, hopefully, that we're just going to go through this movement that we will see it like a bit more maybe niche implementation for the niche market, but it's going to be something that is more sustainable in the sense that it's going to bring in more revenue. So I want to end this part with an optimism that 93% of our respondents will either continue their investment in the metaverse or even increase slightly more. So almost like 2 to 1 ratio over the next 3 years. That those who will continue with the same level of investment, and then those who would increase level of investment will be is probably like around the third here. So then we started like thinking, where do we explore again, like, and understand this kind of level of the metaverse activity at the cities level? And we have to probably start from states first. And I think this is where I can actually thank Liz for being kind of the leader in this effort. Liz was looking into the amount of data that exists and types of reports and types of ranking for the U.S. states, and she said, well, we can actually see and compare sort of the level of the metaverse activity that is measured as the number of Google searches per state in the United States per 1,000 residents. Perhaps we could actually see, what are some of the drivers that exist at the state level that could help and tell us, where those relationships are. So we can expect that some of the drivers of the metaverse interest at the state level could be, for instance, like the type of population. So what is the percentage of population that is under 30? What is the investment of the government or the percentage of GDP at a state level that is that again comes from like arts, education, and other kind of industries that tend to be more creative inherently. What kind of technology and infrastructure the states have in place in terms of like broadband and connectivity. Again, like we saw like also from the previous presentation, that kind of VC capital investment is sort of very much tied to the coastal cities, and that is something that we're also applying here, as well as like some other like interesting parameters. So for start, I'm going to share some of our initial thoughts and how we started thinking. So when you think about like Google searches per capita in the last year of like the word metaverse related, we can see the states where that actually got the highest number of searches per capita. So Florida is there like ranked as top one state. Quite expected that we will see like really high kind of ranking like on the coastal level. But there are some surprises as well, which are moving away from that kind of model of everything happens at the coast and things do not happen in the Midwest. And I will try to kind of highlight some of these. So we mapped the Google searches per 1,000 residents with the share of state GDP in arts and creativity, sort of creative related industries, and whereas as you can see kind of there's really good kind of positive relationship, and there are definitely outliers, like all the coastal states. You also do see that there are a lot of states that actually are aligned like somewhere near the middle. So for instance, and you see some of the examples here, you will see that they're probably very balanced again, like investment in in arts and creativity in Colorado and similar states, as well as again like their kind of Google searches. One other thing that we thought was interesting is which state is the most fun, and usually to kind of do that, you have to kind of look into the overall availability of arts, entertainment facilities, restaurants, and other kind of fun things to do in the states. So what publishes their fun index, and when looking at the fun index of different states and looking into like also searches of the term metaverse, again like yes, most of the fun kind of happens indeed again like at the coast, and again like some of those kind of fun related states. We're often very surprised over there to see that so Nevada, Florida, California, Illinois were like sort of the top ranked. But again, like there are also more like fun states where you can see an increased interest in metaverse, such as Arizona.
Who's the least fun?
Who's the least fun? I do actually have to go to data to kind of see that. I wasn't making too long. I didn't make it like too visible, but probably we would expect that like the least fun state, and if you kind of just like look at here. Personally, probably like it's a better race between like Mississippi and West Virginia.
Makes sense.
They just don't want you to know. They keep it.
Well, maybe like it's also about the metrics. You have to think about it, how to question the metrics, like what fun is, and have to redefine that kind of fun for the state. And then lastly, we also looked into the states where people travel the most. So So these are not the states that actually get the most tourists. These are the states from which people tend to travel the most, and they tend to mostly search for travel, the trips. So we took the ranking of these tourism theater states. So unlike the previous charts, what is close to 0 here tends to be like kind of better ranked. And we look into the searches rank as well. So again, like, it fairly sees that there is also this very, very strong correlation between the states from which where people travel the most, and they tend to be the most, and then again the searches as well. So here again, like, we can see, I think, a pretty good kind of coastal kind of the structure of travel states, certain those that are interested in metaverse. So what comes next for us? This is just preliminary, and we're looking to get more data, both from the companies, but also data from the cities. And for that, I think we will need collaboration of everybody who is in this room and possibly our partners in order to get access to that city level data and tell us, hey, maybe you have this metric, but this metric is wrong. I can actually get you like more verifiable data that you can actually put and analyze and try to create this benchmark for the cities and their overall engagement or opportunities in the metaverse. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Vanja, thank you. I mean, you just distilled like so much into like a 30-minute briefing. Thank you very much, first of all, for all the work. I almost wish I heard this briefing yesterday earlier, just to kind of put some of the presentations into more sharp context. Because this really is the glue that holds so much of the work that Liz and you and everybody else on the team have done so far. So I have a comment and then a question. The comment would be, consider, if you could, maybe for the next go-around, go to not just the strategy officers. I'd really be interested in where the buy-in is in the chief financial officer or the revenue officer, just to kind of juxtapose. The strategy folks maybe getting paid to think about things like this more. That might be interesting. And the other thing is just a request. I'd love if we could get like little bites of this, like your top hits, that find their way through what Liz puts out on all the channels that are out there. Because these are the talking points I want to march away with. And I've got my own, but it would be great if we're on the same sheet of music. And could amplify what you're doing.
You're definitely reading our minds. So we started talking about this the past few weeks. Well, we haven't started out, but we do need sentiment from others. And we started saying, well, let us actually think about who to target next and how to expand our pool of our sample for this study. And following this summit, there will be highlights that will be published, but we just need to give some time to our marketing team to publish some of the highlights. And hopefully, again, like once we have more data, we'll be able to publish these highlights regularly and sort of be able to kind of track the progress and the investment level in the activities.
There's a parallel conference going on in Stern right now at their Volatility Risk Institute. They probably have a good cadre of folks you could draft off of on a couple of those verticals. But anyway, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm curious, I think I inferred from your slides that you did not define metaverse for the respondents.
So actually, we offered several definitions to our respondents, and then we asked them to pick the one that is closely associated with the view of their organization, how their organization sees the metaverse. So we offered, I think, 5 definitions. This was the top choice. And which received the highest number of responses. So this was the their definition. I think it kind of, you can tie it like this really kind of nicely into the other information in the presentation, that they do see this as a social networking platform, immersive social networking platform. They do see this as the next generation of the internet. They definitely most closely associate AR, VR, and these technologies. But this kind of the second, the runner-up definition was our definition. We wanted to think a bit more broadly about, well, not only the technologies that are associated with the metaverse, but about what these technologies and the synergy between the things that can be sold in the metaverse could bring to the organization. So this is the runner-up.
I was curious if people were really focused on the use of extended reality technologies and didn't. I think of us as already participating actively in a number of different metaverses, Zoom and Instagram, TikTok. I spent a lot of time in social audio. And so I wondered if maybe that would influence the results of the poll, because if you think that way, I think everything would speed more towards metaverse spending, bullish on metaverse. But the way that it's been defined here in the last slide,
the Metaverse as well as those that don't, and we'll compare and see their individuals. At the moment, there isn't enough data to slice it up and to explore specific kind of groups of security officers in their industries, but that's something definitely worth exploring in the future.
We're going to need to set up a webinar for you in this group, because there's questions, and
I look forward to it.
I don't know that I've been at a conference where we ran half an hour over at lunch, and people hadn't gotten up from their seats to start getting it before. And where I need to pull the microwave from people with questions. I'm going to ask you to grab your lunch rapidly and come back. We've got a phenomenal panel. We have 2 entrepreneurs who have been in Dubai, Paris, New York, being interviewed.